Hello, and thanks for stopping by. As we've seen before on this channel, countless films, TV shows, and music videos have all been filmed on location in London. But the capital has also provided the backdrop for many classic sitcoms. From Only Fools and Horses to The Young Ones, many classic comedy moments were shot right here, on and around the streets of the capital. In this video, I'd like to take you on a tour of some of these comedy locations, an exploration which, I hope, will put a smile on your face. As always, this list is far from exhaustive, so if there are any other sitcom examples you can think of, then please do be sure to note them down in the comments. I've also created a map showing all of the places we'll be seeing. You'll find a link for that in the description below. We'll begin with what's arguably the most famous London-based sitcom, Only Fools and Horses, which ran from 1981 to 2003. Created by John Sullivan, Only Fools and Horses followed the exploits of Derek Trotter, aka Delboy, and his younger brother Rodney, a pair of fly traders who lived in a council flat with their granddad, played by Leonard Pearce, then, following the sad death of Pearce in 1984, their great uncle Albert, who was played by Buster Merryfield. The show's name, by the way, is a reference to the old saying, "Only fools and horses work," a phrase used by those looking for quick and easy ways to make money. A good example of the saying can be seen in this report from the Sheffield Daily Telegraph, published in 1857, when, following a burglary, the three suspects were, quote, "seen drinking together, very flush of money, when one was heard to remark that only fools and horses worked." There are many London locations associated with Only Fools and Horses, although despite being famously set in Peckham, you may be surprised to hear that no scenes were actually filmed in that particular part of the city. The famous tower block, Nelson Mandela House, in which the Trotters live for example, is in fact located in West Acton. In real life it's called the Harlech Tower, and you'll find it off of Park Road East. The Harlech Tower was built in the late 1960s, and appears in the opening credits for every episode, even though from the late 1980s onwards, Only Fools and Horses was largely filmed in Bristol. The Harlech's neighbour, the Beaumaris Tower on Park Road North, was also used for filming. You can see it here for example, when Del and Rodney sell a clapped out old car, and then here, when Del discovers that, rather than distributing leaflets for his fledgling tour company, Grandad had in fact chucked them all down a rubbish chute. At the time of making this video, these tower blocks are penciled in for demolition. Although Delboy and Rodney tried all manner of hustles, their main place of business was the street market, the market used for filming being Chapel Market in Islington, which appears both in the opening credits and in a number of episodes. In the very first episode, Big Brother, originally broadcast in September 1981, you can also see White Conduit Street, which runs off of Chapel Market. Here, Del is trying to offload a number of dodgy briefcases at a grubby backstreet shop. As you can see, those units look rather different today, although it's nice to see that the Furrier sign is still there. Another pitch Del and Rodney used was outside the former Randall's department store in Oxbridge, where they tried to flog yapping toy dogs. After being spotted by a policeman, Del escapes through the store, then out along Green Man Passage, which in reality is about 6 miles away, over in West Ealing. Being the Trotters' local pub, the Nag's Head played an integral role in the show, and over the years, a number of different pubs were used to represent it. In the opening credits, the pub shown is the Alma on Chapel Market. When the show debuted in the early 80s, this boozer, which has been significantly altered over the years, was run by a former boxer named Albie Hollister, who you can see working behind the bar. Just across the road from the Alma is the Three Johns, which was also used, as seen here in the 1982 episode It Never Rains. If you fancy visiting a real-life Nag's Head, there are quite a few pubs in London which bear that name, such as this one in Covent Garden, and this one in Peckham itself. Elsewhere, a major London location used in Only Fools and Horses was Waterloo Station, which appeared in the 1988 Christmas special. It was here, beneath Waterloo's famous clock, that Del, using the alter ego Derek Duval, meets his future partner, Raquel. As you can see, in those days, a road ran through Waterloo's main concourse, meaning it was once possible to drive directly into the station. You can also see this road in the 1961 documentary Terminus, when a group of prisoners are taken from a van to an awaiting train. For until the 1980s in the UK, prisoners were indeed sometimes transferred by rail. A similar sequence appears in the opening titles to the 1970s prison sitcom Porridge, where Norman Fletcher, played by Ronnie Barker, is transported from court to Slade Prison via St Pancras Station, which back then was a much grubbier place. As for Slade Prison itself, the exterior for that was shot just outside London, at the former St Albans Jail in Hertfordshire. This institution closed in 1914 and is now home to St Albans Registry Office, where I guess a different kind of sentence is now handed out. Like Only Fools and Horses, Steptoe and Son focused on a pair of working class Londoners, in this case a father and son team named Albert, played by Wilfred Bramble, and Harold, played by Harry H. Corbett, two rag and bone men who were always at each other's throats. Albert and Harold Steptoe's yard was on Oil Drum Lane in Shepherd's Bush, and although Oil Drum Lane itself was fictional, the series, which ran from 1962 to 1974, was indeed filmed around that part of West London. Most of the episodes were filmed at the BBC's Lime Grove studios, close to Shepherd's Bush Green, a complex that was demolished in the early 90s and replaced by housing. Exterior shots of the Steptoe's yard were shot nearby. In the earlier series, Oil Drum Lane was in fact Norland Gardens, which has also long since vanished, the area having been transformed in the late 60s to accommodate the West Cross route. Today, the path once covered by Norland Gardens runs parallel to Queensdale Crescent, although there is still a Norland Road nearby. In later series, the Steptoe's yard switched to Stable Way, which lies on the other side of the West Cross route, tucked away beneath the concrete tangle of the elevated Westway. Close to Shepherd's Bush, on the western edge of White City, is Hemlock Road, which in 1973 appeared in the very first episode of Some Mothers Do Ave Em, a sitcom about a gentle soul named Frank Spencer, played by Michael Crawford, who happens to be one of the most accident-prone men you'll ever meet. In the show, Hemlock Road is home to Frank's mother-in-law, Mrs. Fisher, who despairs at her daughter Betty's choice of husband. One of the running jokes in Some Mothers Do Ave Em is Frank's inability to hold down the job. In the episode The Employment Exchange, for example, he tries his hand at being a window cleaner. Only problem is, his first day on the job involves working on this huge tower block, leading Frank, who has a fear of heights, to suffer a panic attack. This hair-raising scene was filmed close to Stonebridge Park Station, at a tower block then known as Wembley Point, which had opened in 1965. Today it's called the Wem Tower. You can get a good view of it from trains heading to and from Euston. Incredibly, Michael Crawford did all of his own stunts for the show, and this one in particular nearly ended in catastrophe. You see, whilst filming high up on Wembley Point, the combined weight of Michael and his fellow stuntman, Derek Ware, caused the cradle to tip, meaning they couldn't climb back in. And so, the pair were stuck in this terrifying position for around an hour before being rescued. Another crazy stunt can be seen in a 1973 episode, Father's Class, when Frank loses control at a roller skate rink and hurtles off at a breakneck speed. This scene begins at the former Pickett's Lock Leisure Centre, which is now the Lee Valley Athletic Centre. Frank then hurtles around this now lost pedestrian bridge, which was once located outside Edmonton Green Station, and then along Pickett's Lock Lane, where he narrowly avoids being hit by a lorry. In the 1978 episode, Moving House, meanwhile, Pearson Street in Hoxton can be seen. As Frank and Betty depart for a new home, their old one collapses in on itself, supposedly wrecked after accommodating the hapless Frank Spencer. A more modern row of houses now occupy the spot, although towards the western end of Pearson Street, you can still see one similar to those seen in some Mothers Do Ave Em. As we saw earlier, Only Fools and Horses was created by John Sullivan. Prior to that, he'd written another sitcom, Citizen Smith, which itself featured an episode entitled Only Fools and Horses. Citizen Smith ran from 1977 to 1980 and told the story of Henry Wolfie Smith, played by Robert Lindsay, a young Marxist who, through his organisation, the Tooting Popular Front, had ambitions of becoming a Che Guevara-type revolutionary. The opening credits for Citizen Smith did indeed feature Tooting, this spot outside Tooting Broadway Tube Station. There were several versions of the title sequence, one of which showed Wolfie placing a beret on top of Tooting's King Edward VII statue. The intro also showed Wolfie posing on this railway bridge, a long, rickety and unnervingly bouncy structure known as Jacob's Ladder, which crosses the Great Western Main Line between Ealing's Felix Road and Manor Road. First conceived in David Nobbs's 1975 comic novel The Death of Reginald Perrin, Reggie, as his friends and family call him, was a supposedly respectable businessman who, in the midst of a serious midlife crisis, abandons his life and family in an attempt to forge a new identity. The book was adapted for television in 1976, with The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin, in which Reggie, played by Leonard Rossiter, lived with his wife Elizabeth on a quiet suburban street, represented by Beaufort Close in Ealing. Reggie commutes into Waterloo every day from Norbiton Station, which is in fact some distance from Ealing, and is late every day, despairing at British Rail's increasingly ludicrous excuses. Reggie's place of work is Sunshine Desserts, whose office was located on Telford Way, Acton. The building has since been demolished and replaced with modern units, although you can still see the old building on Google Street View. As for the scene in which Reggie fakes his own death, that was filmed down in Dorset, at West Bay, near Bridport. It was also in the West Country, Torquay in Devon to be precise, that the classic sitcom Fawlty Towers was set. Yet despite the hotel supposedly being at a seaside resort, several exterior scenes were in fact filmed in northwest London. The episode entitled The Germans, for instance, first broadcast in 1975, opens with a shot of Northwick Park Hospital. Then, in Gourmet Night, also dating from 1975, Basil is let down by an alcoholic chef, forcing him to dash to and from a restaurant to fetch dishes for his guests. The restaurant shown, called Andre's, was located on Preston Road, a short distance from Wembley Stadium. Whilst speeding to Andre's, we see Basil's car pass along Woodcock Hill. It then breaks down at the worst possible moment, causing Basil to snap and assault his vehicle with a tree branch. This famous scene was filmed on the corner of Lapstone Gardens and Mensmore Close. Although Only Fools and Horses wasn't filmed in Peckham, there is another sitcom that was. That being Desmond's, which ran on Channel 4 between 1989 and 1994. Desmond was Desmond Ambrose, a barber whose shop was located at 204 Bellenden Road. Desmond was played by Norman Beaton, who was originally from Guyana. In the early 60s, he worked as a teacher in Liverpool before going into acting. One film he appeared in, 1977's Black Joy, in which he starred alongside Floella Benjamin, was filmed mainly on location in Brixton. In Desmond's, Desmond Ambrose was also from Guyana, and a running theme in the show was that he desired to return there. This was sadly mirrored in real life by Norman Beaton, who, suffering from ill health, flew back in December 1994, but tragically died just a few hours after landing. Another actor who died before his time was Rick Mayall, who passed away in 2014, aged as 56. Rick, alongside Adrian Edmondson, Nigel Planer, and Christopher Ryan, starred in the anarchic comedy The Young Ones, which ran for 2 series in 1982 and 1984. Set in a turbulent and very grotty student's house, The Young Ones was mainly shot in Bristol, although the very first episode, Demolition, was indeed filmed in London. The house used was on Hungerford Road in Holloway. In the show, it's been condemned, and the council want to tear it down. Luckily, in reality, this fine old building is still very much standing. Between 1991 and 1995, Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson starred in the equally squalid comedy Bottom. The opening titles for this were filmed on Hammersmith Broadway, back when the large Broadway shopping centre and office complex was under construction. In a nice touch, a memorial plaque dedicated to Rick Mayall has been placed on this bench. The words on it are a reference to a speech Rick gave at Exeter University in 2008, in which he listed his 5 mantras for a happy life: equality, opportunity, wisdom, freedom, and love. We'll finish with a sitcom you probably weren't expecting to see here, Red Dwarf, which was set on a huge mining ship 3 million years from Earth. Despite being set in deep space, certain scenes for Red Dwarf, which debuted in 1988, were indeed filmed in London, namely at 2 old industrial sites, whose pipes, dolls and old machinery were perfect for replicating sci-fi interiors. The 2 places used were the former Kempton Park pumping station in southwest London, which is now the Kempton Steam Museum, and the old Bankside Power Station, which has since been transformed into the Tate Modern. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at London's classic sitcom locations, and as always, I'd love to hear your own thoughts. Out of the ones shown here, which was your favourite show? And what other scenes and sitcoms can you think of? Please be sure to let me know in the comments. If you haven't yet subscribed to Rob's London, then I'd appreciate it very much if you could please consider doing so, as this, along with clicking the bell icon to receive notifications, will ensure that you don't miss out on any future videos. Plus, of course, it'd be wonderful to have you along. And if you enjoyed this film, you can also give it a little boost by clicking the YouTube hype button below. If you're feeling extra generous, you can also support my work with a tip via either my Ko-fi account, which I'll link below, or the YouTube thanks button, which appears as a heart icon beneath the video. Any such financial donations are of course greatly appreciated, and they really do help go towards creating content. Anyway, on that note, thanks again for watching, friends. Stay well, and please be sure to stay tuned.